Hey guys, welcome to Harlem Radio 115. I just want to say thanks for watching and coming out and supporting. And I'm here with my good friend William. William, you want to introduce yourself to the people?
I'm gonna introduce myself.
Yeah, no. So this is my good friend William. He is a philanthropist. He is a leading worker in the office for the mayor. He works for the New York City government, and he's here today to talk about some of his LLCs and his businesses that he's been working on currently, and what he wants to see come into fruition in the future. For sure.
Yeah,
So William, thank you so much for being here.
good to be here. And name is William Allen. I don't actually work in the office of the mayor. I have my own firm, but I am on some projects with the mayor,
Awesome.
which we discussed. One project is the Harlem African Burial Ground, which the mayor is actually involved with. We found a burial ground that was for Black folks in the 17th century here in Harlem. And the other is creating a museum for hip hop in the Bronx.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Awesome. And do you know what like installations you want to have at this museum, or are you in that
They're
process?
now looking at that now. They're looking at programs and curations and all that kind of stuff. I know it's not only going to just be music, but it will be fashion, it'll be literature, all the whole hip hop culture will be represented in the museum.
Like the last 50, 75 years or
From the
so?
beginning.
From the beginning.
From the beginning. And maybe before that, maybe some kind of historical connection to the 70s to maybe a century before that in terms of this
like
that whole art form of
You got like a
communication.
DJ Cool Herc section or something
Yeah,
like
oh
that?
yeah, what he's the impetus for this.
For sure, for sure.
Definitely.
That sounds amazing. And can you explain a little bit to the people, the Harlem Radio supporters, a little bit like about your early life coming up
Yeah.
and what that means?
So I was born and raised in Harlem.
Beautiful, awesome.
And my early years, pretty much my mom was raising us until she got married to my stepfather. But it was some tough times, even though I didn't realize how tough it was. You know, and I look back now and say, oh my God, how does this lady do it? You know,
Shout out to the moms.
Yeah, shout out to the moms. And Harlem was very, very poor. But the difference is you didn't really know you were poor because there was so much community support. People were good neighbors. I always tell people when I was a kid, buildings did not have locks and doormen and security guards. The security was the people themselves. And so if you walked down a block in Harlem and nobody knew who you were, they would say, hey, how you doing? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Where are you going?
Yeah. Where do you think that would that change? Like,
I think when crack hit New York, and particularly Harlem in the 80s,
for sure.
it changed things. It took the that safety that came from neighbors. It just destroyed it.
For sure.
Where
People were
women
just
like
too radical.
yeah, people yeah, and women like my mom who used to go to all these community meetings and stuff like that. Then now they were living in fear, and so they were afraid to go to those meetings and to walk home by themselves, or even sometimes to leave their house, thinking that when they get back it will be burglarized. So crack, the way it hit Harlem, the New Jack City era, just really killed us.
How did you? Sounds like you survived a lot. How did you do that?
I survived, one, because of the kind of mother I had, and two, as a kid, I had like a great fondness for elderly people. I love being around older people, like in their 70s or something, like in their 80s, and I just love to listen to their stories.
For sure.
And if you and that generation now would be in their 90s, right, and late 80s, 90s, and it's like the greatest generation. And so you think about all the things that they went through, the racism, the discrimination, couldn't get even though were educated, they couldn't get the jobs. They had like remarkable stories. How they kept their family together, how they traveled maybe from the South to the North or from the Caribbean to New York, from Africa to New York. Just listening to these, I call battle-ready stories, I was just amazed by it. Simply amazed by it. And I think because of my love for the elderly, I think that's what kept me alive.
Is that what
and
makes
kept me
you?
focused.
Is that what makes you such like a pivotal person in your community? It's like keeping your spirit for the elderly, and just
Yes,
light
yeah,
and
and I think that's why I have a big love for the elderly and also young people too, children too. I think it's both because if you spend a lot of time with the elderly, right, you'll find that that's the one group that cares for everybody.
100%. They got all the knowledge and the
They got all
wisdom.
the knowledge, and guess what? Not only do they have all the knowledge, they're willing to share it.
Hmm.
And so one of the messages that I try to give the young people is please go by a senior center, try to volunteer with an elderly program, go visit a nursing home, talk to the elders about community, learn from them, give back to them, let them pour into you, and you're going to find that your life is going to be even far more substantial.
I completely agree. Like growing up, I worked for this organization, and they always talked about going and helping out the community. We would do like food drives, like making PB&Js,
Exactly.
and just helping out inside, not necessarily churches, but just like we would have like homeless people come to our schools,
Yeah.
and just we would do like a food drive, and we would hand out
Mhm.
sandwiches, and I always just felt tremendously better. Like we would make probably like we would have a competition on the team of making like 1,000 sandwiches.
Yeah.
And just that would be the community based.
What kind of bread?
Hmm?
I said, what kind of bread?
Yeah, no, whole wheat, only the best, top of the line, that's what they deserve, and I just always felt so happy doing it, man.
Mhm.
It was really just like, it just cheered my spirit up.
Look how it did. See what it did for you.
Yeah, no, it
It's
definitely,
very important to the greatest gift that we can ever give is the gift that we give to others,
for sure.
or ever
That's
receive is the gift that we give to others. And I just truly believe that. And I believe that as we give, we're blessed, and we live a life where we're smiling a lot and frowning less.
For sure.
And it helps us to be immortal.
How do you? That's a beautiful thing. Yeah, in staying mortalized, how do you? What are you doing today to cement yourself in the world as a human being?
Well, there's the article that came out about me in the Amsterdam News this past Thursday.
Sure.
That gave some back, and I'm encouraging your listeners to please grab that newspaper.
I wish I could pull
online.
It up right now, but I definitely
Yeah, tell them to check it out. It's an article, William Allen, on civic engagement and Harlem, but it's really a prototype for any communities like ours throughout the world or this country, where if you want a community to be better, you got to be involved. You just can't wait for someone else to do the work. You got to participate, and I want to applaud young people during the George Floyd era of the marching, the rallies. But I always like to challenge young people, saying to them, don't wait for the party. I call the marches and the rallies parties. Don't wait for the party. Find something to be involved with now visible in your community. Is there a tenant association you're building? Is there a block association? Is there an active church? Is there some group? Don't let your years go by when you haven't been on giving substantial service. And as you give the substantial service, you're going to find your own career and life will be greatly, greatly improved. And you're going to probably find those gems out there that can help you with your own career. And so I'm hoping that people read the article. I've had a great life. The article touches on that. I don't know how much time we have on the show today, but I've been good. I've been active since I was 10. I had a mother who went to almost every single community meeting that you can think of, and then the babysitter she gave us was just like her. In fact, I like to tell people my babysitter, Nancy, this late Nancy Bynum, and we all went.
Your second mom?
She was like a second grandmother because she was much older than my mom, right? And then her mother was still alive. Her mother was like in her 90s at that time. We call Miss Moms.
And that's like.
And my mother needed like that older woman to kind of like mother her.
Exactly.
Right.
As she's learning how to be a mother.
Exactly.
For sure.
And Nancy Bynum didn't even have any kids, so we really became, my mom and us became her kids, and my younger brother became her godson. Even though most people thought I should have been the godson, because I was around her more than anybody. But But Nancy, I think my mom learned a lot from her about civic engagement because Miss Nancy was involved in the community council, the police precinct. She was a nurse at the church, St. Shallow Baptist Church on 131st Street at Powell Boulevard. And I remember, and on Wednesdays, was it Wednesdays? We had an after school program at the church. I don't know if it was every day or maybe one day a week. Mm. And I remember leaving the church with Miss Nancy, right? In those days, we called people formally. We put the title in front of their first name as opposed to their last name. So we say Miss Nancy as opposed to Miss Bynum.
For sure.
And it was not a funeral parlor that she did not know about. So by the time we got home, right, we were fed.
Yeah.
We went to all these.
I get that.
We had all these repasts. So my mom would say, "Are you guys hungry?" We said no. She said, "Huh?" I said, "Yeah, we went to Wingate, this funeral home. We went to that funeral. We saw it." And so people in the community, funerals was like a reunion.
Yeah.
So they knew us kids.
For sure.
They knew us all. So by the time I got really involved, everybody kind of knew me and my family because Miss Nancy took us to everything, and my mom did the same thing.
For sure.
Yeah, my mother did the same thing.
I completely relate to that. I had someone very similar to that. Like my babysitter was basically like right after school when my mom was working too hard. I would go see her.
Yes.
You know, and then it's just like she's involved with every single church. She's all around, so we got to go with her.
Yes, exactly.
These people, you know what I mean? But I still got to be calm and cordial and polite and sweet.
And think about it, she didn't charge my mother a dime.
So she just did it out of the kindness of her heart.
Yes. And I think back in those days, parents used to say, mind your manners, be polite. And so I come out of an era of knowing how to respect and be polite to the elderly. Mm-hmm. So therefore, they want to be around you. And I knew when I was around them to listen.
Always. Gotcha.
And then speak when they inquired me to speak. And I think that's what built a relationship, And I subsequently learned Miss Bynum had spent her career in fashion. I never knew that. One day I'm talking to my older brother. He said, she was a designer. She was big in fashion and stuff. And she was always looking for that big break that never came. She made hats and all kind of stuff. And so you think about her generation with all these skills and not having the opportunity like young people have today to promote those skills, to build a solid business. Imagine what that generation went through where they really never got the turn, and so that's why we cannot be lazy about who we are. We got to really, we got a lot of gifts. We got a lot of tools. Technology has changed how we reach out to people, how we engage people, and hopefully your generation will use technology to bring us close together again, because I don't think that there's a lot. I think I mentioned to you where the black press media is like dead. And because of that, people are not getting the right information 100%. To advance. Like how to find good housing, how to go find a job, where the scholarships are. Like the Amsterdam News, which I was in, where you came and find a newsstand that sells it. So I said to the reporter, I said, next summer, let's recruit some summer youth interns to the summer youth employment program through the mayor's office. And let's do an outreach campaign with your newspaper to senior centers, senior housing, youth programs, and tell the Amsterdam News story and let people know where they can find this. Why don't we have next summer the Amsterdam News exhibit, like all the old articles to show the history, because it shows the history of Harlem. Let's launch it in such a way that we show the importance of the black press and what it meant to us. I mean, if it wasn't no black press, there would have not been no Dr. King.
For sure. No awareness of what his...
No awareness. All of our artists, the Temptations, the Motown era, man, we had no black... Who was going to report on them? The white press wasn't reporting on them,
See, we had like like people like Frederick Douglass, who
That's
started
right.
the whole
He started, the
the
North
whole
Star.
writing, exactly, the
That's
whole
right.
writing industry for
That's
Black
right.
people.
That's right.
Yeah, we're just too focused on drama right
Yeah,
now.
exactly.
And I would love it if we got back to the realness of the world.
I want that so bad. The reality shows like this. The reality shows is almost like bad soap operas, which deeply concerns me. There's some shows which I won't name, but just to see some of these shows where Black women are not even talking business.
Shout out to the baddies out there. You know?
Oh, yeah, you said it. I didn't.
I didn't say anything.
I've watched the show, and I never hear them talk about business.
No.
I never talked about them talk about collaboration.
Preach.
I never hear them talk about their families and their kids and how they see their future. All I see is them fighting and cursing and throwing water and pulling out hair and stuff. And so our young girls and our guys are watching this and they're emulating that behavior. And so, as you know, art imitates life, and here you got art leading life. And so we got to be very, very careful of the images that we're projecting and how it's going to affect future generations also today. So now, let's say you and I decide to go travel around the world. We're going to China or we're going to Europe, right? And those people in those countries have watched Baddies or these other shows. They're going to have a certain perspective of us before we even open our mouths. They may even open the door for us. You see what I'm saying? So when you project these images on these shows like that, you actually impact who wants to do business with you. And that's why Obama was so important, right? When he became president, his presidency as a Black man opened so many doors for Black men around the world we could do business. Because the way he carried himself, and the way Michelle, his wife, carried herself, and his daughters and his mother-in-law, because they carried themselves as a family, it was almost like the Cosbys at the White House.
Exactly.
Right? And so we began to develop or gain a whole level of respect. And now with the reality shows, you know, the fighting, the bad language, the promotion of high-priced designer items that's not even Black design or owned. You know, we're talking about products where we can't even get a job in.
Exactly.
You know, we can't get a franchise in. And so these are the kind of things I like to talk about, not to disparage all these other companies, you know, these big brand names. I'm not trying to put them down. I'm just saying in terms of we have to have a different kind of philosophical behavior that impacts who we are, our education, how we treat each other, how we sustain our community. We're sitting now here in Harlem, and you know, up until the early '80s, Harlem was more than 90% Black. This was the Black neighborhood of the world.
This is the Black Mecca.
This is the Black Mecca, and now Black folks are down to 41% of the population of Harlem, right? And people say,
come back home,
they're
folks.
coming to take Harlem over. No, we've allowed Harlem to be taken over because we choose not to be good trustees, good stewards. You know,
we're so busy being the inspiration, we're not being the leaders.
We're not being the leaders. That's right. And so that's the big concern. So my work is centered around that and meeting young brothers like yourself. Or when you and I met, you know, I was just so pleased. And when young people come to me for my time, I always make, I guess that's the teacher in me, I make my time. Because at the end of the day, you are my future, you know, and I got to make sure that I got to do whatever I can. Whatever's poured into me, I got to give it to you. You know, and help you to save us. You know, we're in a critical stage that we got to save ourselves.
I'm just going to be completely honest. I'm not a hero.
And
neither
am I.
Yeah, you know,
I'm not a hero.
We can only do as much as we can. And, you know, so it truly comes down to like I'll be honest, like I know that I have to stay healthy. I got to stay in my daily habits.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta practice everything that I really want to see come into fruition in order to
Mm-hmm.
to help the next person. I can't save anybody, but I can definitely help the people around me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can lead a horse to water. I
Yeah.
can't make him drink.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just understanding where we are, what the times we're living in, and how we can progress instead of just staying stagnant. That is the real goal
Mm-hmm.
of my generation.
Yeah.
We're just trying so hard to just break down the barriers that were instilled through systemics, through racism, through policing, through everything that has been, boxed us in and to make us
Let's talk
believe.
about policing, right? So we talk about barriers. In New York City,
Mhm.
every neighborhood pretty much has a precinct,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
Every precinct has a community council.
Mm-hmm.
Every precinct has community affairs officers.
Mm-hmm.
They meet every month.
Mm-hmm.
And if you was to go to a community council meeting of the precinct, there's a typical person in the black neighborhood that's sitting in those meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And it tends to be black women
Mm-hmm.
over the age of 70. Now, what does that picture say? That means a whole lot of folks are not in the room
Mm-hmm.
for their views to be heard. And
Mm-hmm.
so, while there might be barriers for us, there are opportunities by which we're not taking advantage of, right? So, for example, when we had this whole issue about police versus community, I was so hold it. We have precincts in every community where we can have dialogue
Mm-hmm.
and we can shape that relationship. And I say this because last night I joined Maria Davis, who's an activist in the community. Mad props to Maria Davis, who's a health advocate.
So nice.
I love Maria
She's
Davis.
so
She
chill.
convinced me to attend with her the Citizens Police Academy and what
Mhm,
he did to
mhm.
learn more about their procedures, stuff like that. And I also taught criminal justice for almost 20 years at
Mhm.
John Jay. And but this class is like
Congratulations.
regular community people.
For sure.
And it's like, so driving out there yesterday, police officer, let's give it to police officer Hall and police officer Searchy. They're the ones who are driving us to the academy in Queens, in Flushing, Queens. And as we're riding out in a police car, we're having dialogue.
Mhm.
And Searchy and Hall are two young guys that actually grew up in Harlem.
For sure.
The head of the precinct of the 2-8 also was born and raised in Harlem, and his predecessor before that. And so there's a relationship there, but if we don't get younger people in the room by which we can have this dialogue, then we will always have the wrong perception of what our power is and how we can really shape things,
Mhm.
right? I mentioned John Jay. I'm deeply concerned the fact that every semester I see less and less young black men at the college. John Jay is known as the police academy, and I don't see a lot of black men now have an interest in law enforcement. I know that the George Floyd matter might have put a stain on how we look at policing,
Definitely.
but I don't see that happen with Asians.
Yeah.
I don't see that happen with Dominicans.
For sure.
I don't see that happen with other immigrants, non-black immigrants, who are moving into those roles.
Yeah.
And those roles do what? Put you immediately into the American middle class,
100%.
right? You start off with $55,000 a year. In
Mhm.
5 years,
put you on
you're
second
making
base.
6 figures, huh?
It puts you on second base.
It puts you on second base,
Immediately.
and then you get to retire young. You can then maybe go to law school or
Mhm.
start a business, something like that. And so we're missing out on some real serious opportunities in the city as black people for what was good for other ethnic groups. When the Irish was super poor,
Mhm.
and what got them out of their poverty was public service.
100%.
They became
relieving
the
them.
firemen, the
Yeah.
police officers. They took advantage of those things, and they kept growing and growing and growing. And now they've had 2 American presidents who were Irish.
Yeah.
Can you name who those 2 presidents were?
John F. Kennedy and
Somebody's recent. Most recent.
Bush?
Nope.
McCain?
No, McCain was never president. Biden.
Biden. Biden's Irish?
Yeah, he's Irish.
Oh,
Irish
yeah,
descent.
my roommate told me that.
Yeah, Byron. So you got John F. Kennedy and Joseph Biden, and for African Americans, we've had Obama, Barack Obama, and
Sure.
and we've had a black woman as a vice president.
Which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it was a beautiful thing, but we
Shout out
got to make
Pamela.
sure that we let's give that ovation.
Yeah, shout out
But what we
Pamela.
got to tell young people, if they want to grow in power, if they want to have a business, they got to be more involved in their community, and they got to be not just with their own age group. They got to be more diverse in their relationships. They got to know who the players are in the community, and know these players before something happened to them. Because sometimes people they'll go looking for help, but imagine if you already know where to go for help before you need the help. That means you can plan. When I had young people in my family, they got in trouble with the police, right? Their parents or they would call me up, and I would go to the precinct. And because the precinct knows who I am, right? It's almost like we are in Long Island, in a white community, in terms of how those kids are treated by that police station.
For sure.
And so imagine if we have these kind of relationships, we can decriminalize how young people going through that whole process,
Yeah,
I don't mean to give a long answer.
No,
but
you're definitely right though.
Yeah.
I agree. I think my generation, Gen Z, we saw so much through the George Floyd protests. Me personally, I was there. I took
Me
my
too.
time out of COVID. I didn't care about masks. I didn't care about any of that. I was just like, hey, too many African American men are dying.
Yeah.
And by the people who's sworn in to protect the
That's right. That's right.
And so it was just understanding that in order for us to progress and prevail as a people, as a nation, as a race, we must understand that the only real way to do so is communicating with each other. And regardless of the stress that we have in our day-to-day lives, we must sincerely put that aside for 2 hours.
Yeah.
At least within a week, right?
Yeah.
And just call it church, call it a cipher, call it a rap sesh. Who cares? But at the same time, it's just like we need to come together again and really talk about the things that are misleading us, that are taking our attention away from what's really important.
Yeah, we got to be involved. Just like the 2 grandmothers that was just killed in Harlem, one near Martin Luther King Towers, formerly Foster Projects, and the other is Lehman Village. I mean, these are 2 women in their senior years, and they were killed by young people.
Really?
And so that's not the police killing the grandmothers, right? And so we got to figure out some way of bringing some sense of humanity back, even in terms of how young people treat themselves. So that's really the issue. So the issue is not so much how people treat young people, how they treat themselves, and the images, and how do we reach them to let them know how important they are, and how they have to celebrate the greatness in each other. When I was a kid, if I had a friend that was really doing some great things, I really celebrated them. If they got into the college of their choice, or whatever, they got that summer job, I was really proud of them. We got to really bring that back with young people, where they're able to celebrate each other, and the celebration cannot just be around how much money a young person can make, or what designer labels they can wear, but truly the celebration is in their genius. I like there's another guy from Harlem like you. Maybe one day you'll meet him, Kai Sinat. Maybe you met him already.
We went to the same high school.
Oh yeah, so did we talk about that?
No.
Okay.
But so
From Douglas, right?
yeah. So I went to Frederick Douglass Middle
Mhm.
School.
And I went there for middle school.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, you went to FDA too?
Yep.
Well, FDA 1.
Well, when I went
also.
there, it wasn't called it. When I went there, it was intermediate school 10.
Yeah, CS.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And when my father and my uncles went there, it was
Mhm.
junior high school 139.
Oh, okay.
But it was Frederick Douglass.
Yeah, okay, I get that. Yeah, it's a very long-standing community symbol. I feel like
Yeah.
I love the school so much that after I got my job and teaching and everything like that, I went back and taught at CS 200, which is
Wow, next door.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's the school leading into Frederick Douglass.
Wow, I know.
You know, so
I used to be on the school board.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you know, it was just no. So I know of Kai. Some of my best friends, they all went to school with him. I went to the middle school and he was in the high school.
Mhm.
But when I would go back from when I would come home from school, because I went to boarding school growing up,
Mhm.
I would always see him and hear about him, but I would just be like, I'm a lacrosse player. There's no reason for me to talk to him, not knowing who he was, what he was about. You know, it just wasn't my world. You know, so it was just like, yeah. But every time like I'm out and about and I see Kai on TikTok and stuff like that, I'm always like super happy. He's like one of the funniest guys because he embodies the comedy that we as Harlemites, as people in the Bronx, as people in Brooklyn, as New York, he embodies New York City comedy so well.
What I like about Kai, he doesn't have to have a tough exterior.
Yeah.
Sometimes they want black males to be rugged and tough. He has like a real gentle kindness aura about him.
All the time.
You know, and I don't see anything fake about him.
Not at all.
You know, and for that reason, that's why I like him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, another cat I've been checking out is I Show Speed.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with I Show Speed?
Yeah.
You know, and he has a nice, funny.
These streamer cats are.
See, as you can see, I'm up on stuff, right?
Yeah,
see, I got my homework, right? So
he's in tune.
I'm in tune because I listen, you know, and I talk to young people. I say, what are you guys listening to? How are you getting your information? And so you do have some cats like yourself that's out there, and maybe what you can do. Remember, I tell you the challenge we now have is Black information dissemination. I always say we are resource rich and coordination poor, and the way information is flowing in our community, it's really needs to be fixed, right? People are not getting timely information, or they're getting misinformation, and the tools that we now currently have, some people are not using them enough to really strengthen them, but weaken them. And so you, Kai Sinat, and then the other folks I mentioned earlier in this conversation, just imagine if we had a Harlem conversation just to discuss traditional and social media impact on our future. Just imagine if we brought all these people together just to talk about how we can use these instruments to strengthen our survival. That's being a hero. See, a hero is not somebody that's, you know, running with a cape somewhere. A hero is just using your intellect.
Exactly.
And this, if you save one life, that's more than one life saved.
Exactly.
You know?
Just any attempt to do good.
That's right.
Is better than nothing else.
That's right. That's right. And just like you know, the fact, you know, when you reached out to me, I saw that as hero credentials. And, you know, your follow-up is incredible.
Thank you.
You're very professional. You know, you make sure this morning, yesterday, okay, tomorrow.
For sure.
And it's the morning, okay, tomorrow. You know, you knew how the human mind works in terms of people's time, and your follow-up, kid. You got a mentor for life. I mean, I'm serious. I'm so impressed with you and your follow-up. And so therefore now, as I'm thinking of things, I'm thinking of you, of how to tie you into those things.
Sure.
Yeah, seriously, because you are serious about this. And so with me, I tend to be very giving to young people that's serious about the survival of the culture. And I do all I can to help you with your leadership and your heroic efforts. You know, I just want to be I want to be like your Miss Nancy.
Okay. All right.
You know, I want to be like how my mom was for me. I want to be like those two ladies. I want to be that kind of man for you.
For sure.
He said, you know what? Let me call William up.
Okay.
You know, I need to brainstorm.
Yeah,
Let me see who William knows.
You know,
Maybe am I missing something? You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me help drive whatever you're trying to create into fruition into the next generation.
That's right.
You know, it's just all about.
That's right.
Whatever you're planning and what you have done in terms of your life mission, let me help bring that into fruition into this generation.
That's right.
That's all I really care about, to be honest, at this point. And it's really understanding that. So you're working with a couple LLCs these days. Do you want to talk more about that?
So so with my business, what happened was I've been in politics most of my career and nonprofit stuff, but really people see me as a political person, and I was instrumental in successfully getting Cordell Clear, my co-district leader, elected as the state senator. She's the second Black woman in Manhattan to hold the position, and she's the Black, yes, and she's now the Black woman who's held the position the longest. The first Black woman that got the position was Constance Baker Motley, who went on to become Manhattan Borough President briefly, and then she went on to become a federal judge. Cordell is a district leader. She was on the local school board. She was chief of staff for the late city councilman and state senator Bill Perkins, and so in this particular 2021, she and I both were opponents. We both were running for the city council, and we lost.
Wow.
And it was like 17 people running, right? It was horrible, right? And so after the election, we said, you know what? We got to find a way of working together. You know, because if we don't work together, neither one of us is going to ever win, right? So I said, you know what? I'm going to support you for state senate. At this time, before I went to her, there was another young lady that was going to run, who I went to first. Her name was Yasmin Hurston Cornelius. But Yasmin said that she wanted to run. I said, well, I'm going to go after Cordell and see what she wants to do. Cordell said, yeah, she likes to run. I said, Cordell, I'm going to help you. And I know at some point, Cordell might have felt some hesitation, you know, because I was always running for these things myself. So, you know, the trust factor had to be built up. But I think as she saw me every day, just giving my all towards her victory, she became more and more comfortable. Inspired. And so that day, up on the hill at Riverbank Park, when they announced the nominee for state senator of the party to fill the vacancy is Cordell Clear, my whole heart warmed up. And I looked at her face, and she looked at me like,
it's time. It finally happened.
Thank you. It finally happened. Awesome. And she's just really, even though we don't always agree on some political stuff, but her governance, her understanding of governance, and the kind of things she do, I agree on most of the things that she's doing. It's been revolutionary. She just named the 110th Street and Lenox Avenue subway station after Malcolm X. She does a lot of community events, so therefore people can meet their government halfway, so she can explain things to them. You can show where resources are. And so she's helped to set the tone for what a Black politician should look like and sound like, and what they should be doing here in New York City. Like I said, we don't always agree. Some things we've had some fight over still, but I admire her work greatly, and the fact that I always have access to her. So that's one of the things I'm doing. So besides her, I helped to get Yusef Salaam elected to the city council.
For sure.
That's why when you saw me, that's why I was with him, hanging out with him.
Nice guy.
At Gracie Mansion.
Yeah.
Helped Jordan Wright get elected state assembly. And these two guys are young, right? Jordan just turned 30, 31.
Long career ahead.
And I spoke to him this morning, by the way.
For sure.
Got him elected, and a lot of people had wanted me to go to that assembly seat, including Claudel. They thought it was my turn.
Yeah.
But I felt that I was getting older now, that I really wanted to bring another generation in, and I just wanted to be the wisdom behind that person.
You're not much for the spotlight.
Exactly.
For sure.
And so I went to Jordan and say, I'm going to support you. And I think because of that, he knew the sacrifice I was giving up, right? I think that's why he has ultimate respect for me. So every time if I call Jordan, Jordan picks up the phone immediately, you know, and so that makes a huge difference of pouring into him and making him a strong, I won't say leader, but a strong representative for this community because I don't see politicians as leaders. I see them as representatives. The leadership has to come from the people.
For sure.
All power to the people. The leadership has to come from ordinary, everyday people like Nancy Bynum, my mom, Ernestine, Bland Williams. The leadership has to come from regular folks who then the politicians get their direction from to then go do the right thing. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I just want to say like a special shout out to Vanessa Gibson.
Oh yeah, Vanessa Gibson, absolutely.
Yeah, she's like the Bronx Bureau president, and
That's right.
she has been so inspiring. Her, Maria, there's David Koulibaly. There's the people in the Bronx organization.
Yes,
they helped me right out of college get into the path of logistics and like government and civil affairs.
Nice, nice.
And what that means to work for the city in ways that are truly impactful.
Yeah.
And so shout out to them and what they're doing.
Yeah. Oh, it's funny you mentioned Vanessa Gibson. So when I was with Reverend Sharpton, I was Reverend Sharpton, National Crisis Director of National Action Network, and I was trying to put together organized resources around. People would call him up asking for help, and he said, "William, we need to figure out how to help them. How to do it efficiently." And it's in 40 states, right? So in New York, I said, "Okay, let me lean on the resources that's already in these people's neighborhood, right? And the group of people that tend to know where the resources are in the neighborhood tend to be the elected officials, because they actually are the ones who fund these things, right, from the government side." And so as I was doing this research and looking at who was in the city council and the state assembly, the one office I got to tell you that I thought was incredible was Vanessa Gibson. Her office was so organized, and I went up to visit in the Bronx. How she had the information flyers and brochures and everything, and how her staff treated you the moment you walk into the space. Yeah. I said, "Oh my God, this is the prototype.
Extremely.
This is the prototype." And if I can one day be in charge of training the future staff of elected officials, I would use her as the model office to train our elected official offices. So when our people go to visit these offices, right?
She does it so beautifully well.
It's seamless.
Yeah.
And so when she ran for borough president, I told people, "Yo, I hope she wins. Yeah. I hope she wins because she understands constituent services. She understands educating people on their power. And she does it with so much kindness. For sure. And she has the kind of staff that reflects her own values, 100%. And that makes a huge difference." So when you mentioned Vanessa Gibson, 100% for me.
Yeah. Her, there's Yusuf Salim, so many pivotal leaders within the Black community that are making extreme change in the right direction. And so that's your generation. So I want to say thank you to you guys for making it through the New Jack City era.
Woo!
Making it through the 5 era, the Central Park 5 era.
Yes.
The accusations, allegations, the craziness of the world just trying to succumb you to your madness.
And you wanted to talk about the young man that was killed, who's doing something like your podcast.
Sure. The
Charles Kurt.
Yeah.
Now, I don't promote anybody being killed. I'm a guy whose own brother was murdered, right? And I had 3 male cousins. They were my first cousins. They were my mom's nephews. They were murdered too. So I understand murder and death and the impact it has on a family for generations, and I'm sensitive to that. But before Charlie's murder, and I'm just not going to call it assassination because he was I know people like to say the assassination, but he wasn't an elected government official, so I don't want to use that term too loosely.
Mm-hmm.
I will say he was murdered, and something caused me to say, I need to know who is this person? Why was he murdered?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so I started just Googling him and getting all this information, and I was actually saddened by some of the stuff I discovered.
Yeah.
I saw the stuff he said about black women,
Yeah.
particularly Kamala Harris,
Mm-hmm.
and them saying affirmative action. I said, it's like some old 80s bull crap of
Mm-hmm.
calling people names and
Some like
stuff.
soap
That like
boxing.
the soapboxing stuff, the welfare queen and all that kind of
Yeah.
blaming powerless people, you know.
Yeah.
And then as I'm researching, something popped up on my X, my Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it was him making a statement by Yusef Salaam, saying that Yusef Salaam got involved in a traffic stop when he first got elected to city council.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that Yusef took advantage of his new position.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, this is the same guy that raped and got away with it. He said that statement, and I said, so then it caused me to have a whole another view of Kurt. I was like, oh my goodness, this guy, is he dumb?
Mm-hmm.
How do you make a statement like that without going to go check the facts?
Mm-hmm.
They were acquitted. It was proved that they did not do it. If you're supposed to be a leader of influencing young people, look like, let me call up Yusef Salaam and get him on my show to talk about what his experience like as a 14, 15-year-old, what he went through. And so I can understand it. That's leadership. Leadership is not calling people names and not having all the information. Yeah. So that's why I said I didn't call Kurt any name. I did my research to find out what is going on, you know, and so I reached out to Yusef. I said, Yusef, did you know that this guy said something about you? He said, yeah. I said, you never mentioned it. He said, William, it was so ridiculous.
There's no need.
I said, but Yusef, this guy has a huge platform. This like went out to millions of people. He was putting your life at risk.
Yeah.
He was putting your life at risk. And I say this to say because last summer, I volunteered my time in Yusef's office to help him get situated.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And Yusef, while I was there, he was constantly getting death threats. Him and his wife. People don't know that. He literally had to move his office out of a storefront on Lenox Avenue, 119th Street, was no longer safe, and put it in a state office building with security.
Yeah, I went there the other day. I met Yusef.
You see, exactly.
I met Yusef when he was first coming into council.
Yes.
And before he finally got his
exactly
council member, he was already nominated at the time, and he came to the community center where we're based in right now at Harlem Radio, and we spoke briefly about what was going on at the time in Nigeria and what was going on in America here today. And I was so happy when he got his election nomination and his candidacy, and he finally was announced council member. But we were just talking about basically what it means to be a black man in this country, and he asked me, "Hey, do you want me to come work?" Like, if you asked me if I want to work for him, and I was busy setting up Harlem Radio 115, so I had to reject the claim.
Yeah.
So I reject.
Nice.
Yeah. You know, so it's just like
nice.
But I went back and I saw his office, and I was like, "Hey, like, how come no one's here?" And then I got invited upstairs to his new office, and I was like, "Hey, like," but I never really put two and two together, like what really happened.
Yeah.
It's so catastrophic. Like, when we finally put African Americans in these seats of power, we still have to deal with the backlash of other races, and it sucks. You know, I don't even like saying this because it feels like it's like detrimental to my future, but it feels like black people in power genuinely scares the world, and I'll never understand why. We handle it with such grace, humility, and kindness.
We're so kind to so many people.
You know, it's like
we open up our homes and our hearts. We contribute to the world culture, and And in spite of that, the greatest burglary in the history of this world is the contribution that we made to the world.
Mm.
When we think of ourselves as a culture, I mean, I look at all these things around the room, and one day in February, I was at a church, and there was this lady got up and did a poem about a black boy, and the poem was, "What if black folks never existed?"
Mm.
And it ended with the boy coming home,
Mm.
and there were no lights on,
No music playing.
no music playing. And he said, "Mommy, why is it dark?" She said, "Well, the light bulb was actually invented by a black man.
Mm-hmm.
There's no black people."
For sure.
He said, "Mommy, you know, as I was coming home, there was like 10 car accidents."
No street lights.
Well, no street lights, no traffic lights.
Yeah.
"Mommy, why is your outfit so, you normally it's pressed?" And she said, "Well,
No iron.
no ironing board." You know, so when you think about all these products, you know, all these great inventions, you know, that we came up with, you know, the Gem Reaper. I mean, all these kind of things, these contributions. Just imagine if our world truly was humanitarians, how wealthy black folks would be today.
If we stayed humanitarians.
If the other folks, if the other folks were humanitarians and was grateful for our genius and our contribution and did not lynch us, did not kill us, did not steal from us, but celebrated our contributions, reward our contribution as they rewarded themselves, how much better the whole world would be. The whole world. You know,
I think if we just remember one simple fact, this country is built on our backs.
Yeah, well, more than our backs.
Our fronts, our feet, our spine.
Yeah.
You know, our hands. Our
everything,
minds.
bro, everything. And it's almost like we're constantly, seem like we're constantly in the fight. It's like, when do we get a break? You know, and I say, unfortunately, we can't. That's why I say, while we march and we protest, we must remain engaged. We must participate. We must speak up to injustice, not only when it's perpetrated by other folks, but when we perpetrate against each other, right? We must speak up. We must get ourselves engaged. We must talk to our young people. You know, we're here in Harlem, and we see the homelessness. I don't know. No, yeah. Let me back up. I don't want to call it homelessness, because I don't know if someone is homeless, right?
I call them street weirdos.
Yeah, exactly. So when we see people come up to us, and they say, "I need money for food," and they're standing in front of a restaurant, I normally say, "Well, come with me. I'm going to the restaurant," and I say, "Where's the manager? Give this person a piece of chicken."
For sure.
I said, "Mr. Allen," I said, "I'm in here a lot doing meetings. Give them a piece of chicken."
I get that. You know,
why would I?
Yeah,
I'm already doing my part.
100%.
Give them a piece of chicken. I'm your customer. Give them that. You know,
put it on my tab.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's your give back.
Yeah,
exactly. Your business.
Yeah,
that's part of your philanthropy, right? Also, I also tell them, the street person, we have a program west of the post office on 116th Street. They give out free food every day. And it's a decent meal.
Yeah.
So do you want food or do you want money for drugs?
Yeah.
So I said, just be honest with me. What do you need the money for? Just be honest with me. Look me in the eye and tell me what you need it for. And sometimes I have those kind of conversations. And I said, listen, you can do better. Me giving you money for drugs is not going to make me feel good. Actually, it's going to make me feel horrible.
100%.
So I'm not giving you any money for drugs. But I will lead you to where the food is at.
can lead them to water.
And lead you to what? That's right. But exactly,
Can't
you
make
said
them drink.
I can't make them drink.
Mm.
And so, but these are the kind of conversations that we have to be able to have with one another. So I don't dismiss people. I show leadership and say, listen, we can do better, and you can do better. So even yesterday, riding around with the cop, the police officer Hall, you know, who belongs to what he belongs to great church. What's it called? C. I can't think of the name of the church, but it's a very popular minister. He belongs to that
C3, CCC,
CCC.
Christian Cultural Center.
Yeah, he belongs to that church,
Christian.
and he said he grew up there. And so we were talking about his church and his pastor, and I was before he started talking about it, I saw how he was treating people and his duties as an officer. I know he was this for me. He's always had a pleasant attitude. As we were driving, trying to get to Queens, we had to stop several times for him to go break up something. And I saw how he handled it with so much love. So when he got back in the car, I wanted to know more about him. And I realized it was his own Christian faith and how he was, his own philosophy, how he was developed as a young person to treat people. You know, there was one guy out there who was about to pounce on a white guy on a bike, while the black guy, this guy who was going to pounce, had his own kids with him. So apparently the white guy on the bike cut him off or something like that. So he wanted to fight over that. Like, why are you going to fight over that? You know, all you have to say, sir, please just be careful. Because sometimes when I see bikes on the sidewalk, I say, hey, don't ride your bike on the sidewalk. Please be careful. We don't do that. Don't ride the bike on the sidewalk. You're a grown man. You're not
within the
you're,
lines.
you're not a kid.
Yeah.
You know, this is for pedestrians to walk, right?
100%.
And so it's all how you present yourself to people, you know. And so the officer was explaining that to the father. Say, listen, there's another approach to this. Say, listen, you know, you almost caused an accident. You got to be careful. You know, either you say that or you can say, I'm gonna beat you. What's that gonna do? That's gonna create fear, and now you're gonna see me just as a fearmonger person.
It's only instilling negativity.
Further negativity. But if I come to you in a different way that speaks to your higher purpose, right? You're gonna think next time you're on that bike, you're gonna think differently about not only me, but my children, but other people, because you're gonna remember this conversation that I asked you to raise to a higher level.
Absolutely right. I think I got one more topic in me. Hey, in terms of music these days, where do you think it's going?
Music, I'm a like big R&B guy, but I'm also early hip hop guy.
Are you like a Faith Evans type of guy?
How do you know that?
I don't know,
that is
man.
so true. I love Faith Evans. In fact, I always tell people, Faith Evans, like my youth ended in the late 90s. My youth like ended in 99, right? And so I know I'm still young, but my favorite era of music was the 80s and the 90s. Because if you think about those two decades, you think about Michael Jackson, Lionel Richie,
Teddy Portugal, Jamaicans. I do Popcorn.
Who died young. Bob Marley. So you think about all those folks, you know, in the 80s, you know, we were like slam dunking as black artists in the 80s. 100%. I mean, Michael Jackson, because of what Michael Jackson did, it kind of opened the door up for other black artists. So that's what I'm saying. You said you're a role model. You opened doors up, right? And then the 90s came.
You don't have Chris Brown without Michael Jackson.
Exactly. No. You don't have exactly.
You don't have Neo without Michael Jackson.
You have Neo.
You don't got Usher without Michael Jackson.
Trey Songz.
Yeah.
You don't have any of them. You know, none of them will be around. And so, you know, I've had some experience in the music business. You know, I went to an arts high school. I went to LaGuardia High School of Music and Art. My classmates were Ray Chu, who used to direct music at the Apollo and did a lot of award shows like the Oscars and all that kind of stuff. Ray, at that time we were in high school, we were just little teenagers. Ray was the music director for a group called Ashford and Simpson. And Ashford and Simpson was like two of the top black songwriters from Motown. that they came from the Northeast. Um, and there was Lizette Wilson, not Lizette, yeah, Lizette Wilson, keyboard player, incredible jazz artist in my class, and then Lisa Fisher, who became she was a background singer for Luther Vandross and became her own soloist, and then Marcus Miller, who played the bass. Marcus Miller co-produced all of Luther's songs, all his albums. These were my classmates, and so I kind of grew up also in this whole music. As a kid, I was always around music, and so that's why the 80s and 90s attracted me, because I saw my peers grow into careers. What people don't know is that I was one of the first managers of Kid Rock.
Really?
And people respond like that. And he's, as you know, he's a big time Republican. I'm a big time Democrat. And I became his co-manager because his principal manager was a sports lawyer. Right? They knew nothing about hip hop, right? Sure. And how I became Kid Rock's manager was I had a cousin and a best friend working at Jive Records. And at that time, I was very involved in comedy, the comedy business. I helped to start the Uptown Comedy Club.
Shout out
here in
Jive
Harlem.
Records.
Yep, and Last City at Apollo Comedy Hour. I did all this comedy stuff as a community development project. And so my cousin, Jordan Hairston, thought that it was the same level of skills that can be used to manage any kind of artist, right? And because I also went to an arts high school, he thought it was a good fit. So he brought me down to the record label. At that time, Jive Records was no bigger than this room and the space out there. It was very tiny. Now you know it's a $1 billion corporation. But back then it was so tiny, and it was across the street from FIT, Fashion Institute of Technology, a SUNY school. And I came down and I saw this little scrawny white kid. And I said, well, who is he? He said, this is the kid I was talking about. I was like, what's he? Vanilla Ice? Yeah. At that time, you know, the Vanilla Ice was
like
exactly, right?
Yeah.
I said, who? I said, it's your Vanilla Ice version?
Yeah.
And Kid Rock bust out laughing. He said, no, I'm better than him. Yeah. And we hit it off. And I still have the contract and my paperwork, but we both signed. I still have the paperwork.
You gotta frame that.
Yeah, I gotta frame it, right? And one day, him and I would come together. We'd sit and we'd talk about what our experience was like.
Sure.
And he came, and at that time, I lived in Jersey City. I had a triplex apartment. You know, I had a lot of money. Nice. And he came and stayed in my guest room. You know, he stayed actually with me because my Jordan and the record label was so afraid. They wanted to make sure that somebody looked out for him. That he's not running the fucking streets. Excuse me. He's not running the streets.
No, you know, it's like
you're gonna beat that out, right?
Yeah. we'll work on it in post. But yeah, no, but yeah, no, we you see, my thing is like I've worked with a couple artists, and I've had people ask me to manage them as well.
Yep,
I know what it's like.
You know it is. It's like babysitting. And he was, and it was babysitting with him. I mean, he had brought some things into the house that was a little crazy. Yeah. And when I finally, unfortunately, I had to throw him out of the house.
Well, you're just trying to put him in a better.
I tried to throw him out of the house because what happened one day, I get to the record label, EMI Records, and I go see one of my best. This best friend was working at Jive, is now working at EMI Records. Dwayne, the late Dwayne Oliver Taylor. We went to City College together, and Dwayne said, "You're so nice." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You got all those people staying in your house?" I said, "I got one person staying in my house." Well, he done brought everybody in from Michigan. I said, "What?" And so I was never home. Yeah. Because the place was like 3 levels. Exactly. The cars was down below, the living room, and his bedroom was on the same floor as the living room, and my bedroom itself was upstairs. And I can leave from upstairs door to leave. I never really had to go to, and we never had any food in the refrigerator. I always ate out. Right?
That sounds like a good time.
Yeah, because there was, in those days, there was food all over the place. Black music was popping. So you had all these free parties to go through Monday through Thursday. You had plenty of food, right? And on the weekends, I would go see my parents, and I would eat with them, right? So I said, let me get home early. I get home early. Kid's not home. I went into the room. The room was like smoky, dark, bunch of suitcases, funky, like somebody's locker room. Yeah. And I was like, what the? And I said, okay. So I'll go back up to my beat. So I went back up to my space, and I could hear Kid coming in. I said, oh, Bobby. I called him Bobby because
Mhm.
that's his real name, Bobby. I said, Bobby,
Yeah.
when you get a chance, come upstairs. I just
Yeah.
want to tell you about my day, right? He said, sure, I'll be right up.
Yeah.
And I could hear him whispering.
Yeah.
I could hear people like,
Yeah.
so I said, I'm not going to put him on.
For sure. Yeah.
So so I said, come on upstairs.
Mhm.
And I really didn't have that much furniture, right?
Mhm.
So he sat on the floor. I sat in
Yeah.
the chair.
Yeah.
I said, do you trust me?
Yeah.
He said, absolutely. He said, I appreciate everything you've done for me.
Mhm.
And one day I'm going to reward you for all the stuff you did.
Mhm.
I said, really?
Mhm.
I said, so you can, you can tell me anything, right? I said, I'm here to really protect you.
Mhm.
And I said, but you got to also protect me too.
100%, yeah.
You know, it has to work both ways.
That's your peace of mind, you know.
Yeah, I said, yeah, I have a legal responsibility. I'm older than you. I got a legal responsibility. If something goes wrong,
Mhm.
they're not gonna come after the white boy.
It's gonna
They're gonna come
you.
after me.
Yeah, man.
Like I did something wrong. And I said, I don't have money for lawyers and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Stuff like that. Come on, you know.
Wow.
So,
wait, I know. I read a story.
So I said, is there something you want to tell me?
Yeah.
He said, no, absolutely. I said, well, okay, let me tell you some things, right? Why do I have guests in my house?
Yeah.
And I know nothing about it.
Yeah.
And they've been here for weeks.
Mhm.
Why couldn't you not say, William, I got some friends coming in from Michigan. Is it okay? I said, why couldn't you come tell me?
Mhm.
I said, I had to find out on the damn street. I said, suppose something happened to one of them or something. I said, you put me in an awkward situation.
Yeah.
So I said, well, here's how we're going to solve this.
Mhm.
You're going to pack your things.
Yeah.
And you're going to be gone for 30 days.
Yeah.
And I'll decide whether or not I want you back.
Yeah, I get that.
He said, when am I packing my stuff? You're packing it tonight.
Yeah.
And you get your used car truck in the morning, and you're gone.
You got to clean up your act.
Yeah.
You know?
I said, because trust for me is so important. I said, I don't feel like you're using me. I just feel like I have no trust for you.
Yeah.
And I did everything for you. I gave you a safe place.
Mhm. Yeah, I get that.
Now, what's interesting, as we was beginning the relationship, we drove down to Michigan, right?
Mhm.
At that time, I didn't know his family was wealthy, right?
Mhm.
So we drive down to Michigan, Romeo, Michigan, outside of Detroit, and we come up on this property, and it's like mansion style, ranch style property. I said, well, whose house is this?
Mhm.
I'm up here thinking he lived in a trailer park or
Yeah.
something, because
The way
the way he was talking about
moving.
his music, the way he was
Yeah.
moving his music,
Yeah.
you know, it's like,
Reckless.
it was reckless, right?
Mhm.
I was like, I'm confused. I meet his father, his mother and father come to the door, his sister.
100%. Yeah, I get that.
I said, hold it. Mother's a PhD, like, his father has a number one car dealership in America. Back of the house was tennis courts and
Yeah.
pool. Back there was a cornfield. I said, hold it.
You'd be surprised, man. A lot
You
of these
are wealthy.
artists, yeah.
I said, you don't even pay rent in New York.
Everybody has the Nicki
Yo,
Minaj
you're
story.
living in my house for free.
Yeah.
And I'm struggling, you know, kind of, and what is going on here, right?
Yeah.
And he said,
Mhm.
he did just like that. And it was just so interesting. You know, that was my experience. And I share this with you because I've had like a wonderful, wonderful life.
Mhm.
It's like, sometimes when I tell people about my experiences, people are like, you got to hurry up and write your book.
Yeah.
Because some of the experience you've had, it's
I
like,
was just thinking that
it's
too.
like, what a journey,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
And how many people can say they live with Kid Rock?
Yeah.
This ultra-conservative Republican, especially
100%.
in the era of a Charlie Kirk.
Yeah. Yeah, you know.
Right?
Yeah.
And here was Kid Rock, who stayed with black people.
Mhm.
Black people took care of him in New York.
Mhm.
He had to worry about finding a nickel for nothing.
Yeah.
We took care of him. And so that's where the story is and why the story got to be told. And so Kid Rock and I have not spoken since that morning he left in a U-Haul truck.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that year was 1991.
That's from about like 34 years ago.
Yes, we have not spoken then. Now, do I want to speak to him? I would love to have a conversation with what was going on in his head. I would love to talk to him. I would love to talk to him about his own transformation. You know, how he moved so far to the right because his parents to me it seemed very progressive. The charities and stuff like that. Because I spoke to his father, spoke to his mother, and so I want to know what happened to him. What happened to anybody, right? So I'm just like so curious. So he's one of my stories. Bill Bellamy, comedians all know me back in those days.
Yeah.
Bill Bellamy, Flex Alexander. Flex had a TV show. Dougie Doug lives around the corner from me. He was one of my mentees. Huh?
Is that the Flex you're talking about?
No, not from Flex. The Flex, the comedian.
Okay.
Who's married to Shanice, who was on Motown Records.
For sure.
Her song was "I Like Your Smile."
Yeah.
That's his wife.
Gotcha.
And Flex had a sitcom on TV. I think it was NBC with the kid from the Different World.
Smart Guy?
No, it was called something Brothers in Space or something like that. Right. It was like, I think it lasted one season, but he, and then he had another show where he was a single father.
Is it not Living Single? It's is it the one where he has like a son?
No, he has a daughter.
Oh, okay, never mind.
He has a daughter. If you was to Google Flex, the comedian, all his whole stuff will pop up. And so it's funny, I hadn't saw Flex in years too, and I ran into Flex at the Apollo block party, and that Dougie Fresh put on this past summer, and Flex and I saw each other. And it was like old times, because Flex actually stayed with me most of the summer when Kid Rock was in my house. Yeah. Flex actually stayed in my house. Yeah. And in fact, Flex became like my logo for my comedy brand. Yeah. At that time, Flex wore locks and stuff like that. He was a really funny kid, and he was on all my stuff. And so I reminded him of that, and we had this really short conversation. But I was so excited to see Flex that I made the mistake of grabbing his head. And he was so upset. Yeah. I felt so bad. Yeah, so I don't know what was. Yeah. But it was like almost like a young uncle, older brother, seeing someone you love, and it was just the love that I just grabbed him. Because I was just so excited to see him, and I just felt so bad.
I felt the same when I first saw my cousin after like 6 years.
Exactly. It was just love. 100%. And I said, I'm so.
He like wrestled me to the ground, actually.
Yeah, I said, I'm so sorry. I said, seeing you brought back such fond memories. Yeah. And to have you around me back in those days, we're all young, and you were super young, and I was young. And we were trying to find our way in this world, and we were trying to figure out what would be our contribution. Yeah. And I said, you became a huge success. You actually became successful as an actor, and I'm just so happy that I was a part of your journey, that I was one of those stops in your journey, that you were able to come into my home and find safe haven. At that time, I had an assistant, and she was a volunteer assistant. She just said, "William, I just want to help you. We're going to figure out how to grow this thing." Her name's Carissa Robinson. She's now an acting coach in Atlanta. Her brother was the first manager for Alicia Keys. And actually, back in those days, her brother and her used to bring Alicia Keys to my apartment. I lived in this apartment from like 89 to maybe like 92. So Keys was like very, very young. And so it was this little girl. And so just imagine, here's my point. You never know where people are going to head.
Wait, Swiss Beats wife, Alicia Keys?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
She came to my pop in Jersey City. Down the hall from me, where I lived at a place called Dixon Mills, was Queen Latifah. Yeah. Her brother and I became very close friends. He kind of like managed her auxiliary businesses. They had like a video store on the property. And so I would see Queen, which I call her Dana back then. I didn't call her Queen. I call her Dana. I saw her all the time because the building was like not fully occupied. And because the building was actually very expensive. Now I think about it, my first room when I first moved in was like $12.89 a month. Even though it was 2 bedrooms and I had a parking, all that stuff. But $12.89,
that's not bad.
That was a pretty No, this was like in '89.
Okay, that's probably yeah. Okay.
That was a lot of
So that's
money.
probably like
That's
the
like
equivalent to
paying
like
$5,000 a day,
really.
$5,000 a day, bro.
Yeah,
And
that's
so I'm
two
saying to
perception
myself,
crashes. Yeah.
where did I get the money from?
Yeah.
How was I able to pay that rent?
Mm-hmm.
And then paying for a car,
Yeah.
and feeding myself and
Yeah.
dressing myself.
Yeah.
How did I do it?
Maybe that's where all that community engagement paid
Yes, yes. Money was flowing, and so you didn't have to worry about money.
Mm-hmm.
Money was flowing. The black music industry was popping. Motown was still around. Uptown Records was emerging. Def Jam. Spike Lee, he was now emerging as what blacks can do in Hollywood. So people were imitating him, catch some
Rockefeller,
Rockefeller Records.
Yeah.
All this stuff was emerging. Nelson George, who was, I call the great hip hop historian, was documenting all this stuff. So all this stuff was taking place, and to me, as I now look back, it was also an opportunity for us to own our communities. And I think we missed it.
One.
Because we had such great wealth that it was happening so fast that some of us did not see how it tied to owning dry cleaners, beauty parlors, barbershops, restaurants, gas stations, creating co-ops, promoting home ownership. Wow, all that kind of stuff. We didn't see how we can affect the black ecosystem because this thing was happening so fast. And if you remember, you probably remember in terms of history, with the Cosby Show created an avalanche of black TV shows.
All I know is
all through the '80s. The '80s was the black decade.
All I know is he paid for the stereo that helped deliver Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech.
That's right.
Yeah.
There you go.
So, yeah. And then one thing. I talk a lot about daily habits. I talk about meditation. I talk about breakfast. I talk about reading the Bible. I talk about getting back to the things that really matter in order to keep your mental sane. Do you have anything that you?
Yeah. So I'm a very spiritual person. As I mentioned earlier, I grew up in the church, but it was not dogmatic. Religious experience was more so family-like, with just loving people. I grew up in a youth center that was founded by New York City Mission Society, Christian, old line Christian organization that's really 300 years old. And the Harlem program was founded by two extraordinary black women, Berta G. Klein and Gladys Thorne. And while I was at Menacing, I was impacted by three men. Of the three men, two are now deceased. Well, one is still alive, and maybe you should really get the chance to meet with him. Sure. His name is Rosa Rivers. Okay. He's the vice president of the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce. He's the president of New Heritage Theater. He's a retired police officer. He is one of the best mentors you can ever have. He knows anything and everything from politics to culture. He is the go-to. He's this wonderful W. Boza Rivers. So it was him, and then it was Lloyd Williams, as you know, who just passed. Was a mentor of mine through Menacing, and Preston Washington, who became my pastor. And Preston Washington allowed
Men in Sync. That's what
Menacing, Minisin. Okay. It's an Indian word, old Indian word for upstate. It was a Menacing tribe in upstate New York. And so we had a Camp Menacing, and so therefore we had a Menacing townhouse back in the city. Sure. So it's just a continuity. And so Preston Washington was the head of the leadership program for teens at Menacing, and I was in that program. And teens were taught how to be leaders, how to be responsible, and so I became that one kid that kind of really followed through. So I became the kid that became the first teenager appointed to a community board. I became the youngest kid appointed as a trustee of a school district. I became the kid in the community when it came to politics. Oh, that was Lil William Allen. I became that.
Will.
But Minnesink was my lab.
For sure.
Minnesink was my lab, and I always went back to the lab to share what I was experiencing with other kids and encourage them that they should do that in their own community. So, as I'm a team leader, I created a citywide group called Youth Leadership Task Force at the New York Urban Coalition, which was heavily funded, and it was 60 of us.
What's it called one more time? I'm sorry.
Youth Leadership Task Force at the New York Urban Coalition. New York Urban Coalition doesn't no longer exist.
Okay.
But back then existed. It came out of the civil rights era.
For sure.
It was well funded.
Okay.
And that was really my first time getting a real check.
Yeah.
Full-time check.
For sure.
I gave the check to my mom. She said, "Well, there's a lot of money." I said, "Yeah, I'm the chairman of the Youth Leadership Task Force, and I'm compensated for my role. And my job is to identify other young people like myself." So that became my job.
Just to clarify, the first thing you did with your first major check is you gave it to your mother?
I gave it to my mother.
Sirski.
What am I going to do with it?
Yeah. You're just going to spend it on.
Be honest with you,
So
I didn't know how to shop.
Yeah.
I trusted my mom for any and everything.
For sure.
We had a very, very, as you know, my mom passed last year. We had a very, very close relationship.
I'm sorry.
And a lot of times people say, my younger siblings didn't realize that my mom was also a politician, but I guess they never really took interest in that side of her as I did. And so at her funeral, all the elected officials local spoke at her funeral. The funeral was like nearly 800 people at First Corinthian Baptist Church. So my younger brother got mad. He said, "Oh, you turned mom's funeral into a political convention." I said, "No, these politicians came to show respect to her. Your mother was a politician. Your mother was a civic leader. Your mother saved a lot of lives. And maybe you missed out on those conversations."
Yeah.
Because as you were having conversations, talk about yourself, maybe you should have asked her how she's doing, what she was doing. How can you help her? I said, I was in the business of helping her. I wasn't in the business of her helping me. I wanted to help her. I said, if you remember, little brother, your first full-time job came from who? Me. I said, how that came about? Because I sat down with our mother and I said, what can I do to help my little brother? She said, well, do they have summer jobs? She said, give him a job, give him something responsible, but then watch over him. He'll be near you. I said, okay, I'll do that. I'll hire him that way I can watch over him. You don't realize I went to her and got permission. And so my mom, like I said early on, we started this conversations talking about my mother and Miss Nancy Bynum, and those were like my two first mentors, and they taught me how to get the wisdom and love from other responsible adults. Because if I didn't have them, I would not know how to engage with the elderly, other older people. They taught me how older people have the wisdom. They have the bank. And we got to go with them if we want to grow and become substantial people.
So it's like meditating, keeping the wisdom, giving back, making sure the family's okay, and just like understanding who we are as people. Hey, did you make music yourself growing up?
Yeah, at Minnesink we had a band. I wrote a few songs back then. My brother was more so the artist. I tried to do a lot of things with him. He came in second on a show called Star Search. You're too young to probably remember that. It was like American Idol back in the day. He was on that show. He won Amateur Night at the Apollo multiple times.
Awesome.
He was one of the first artists with this production, Mom, I Want to Sing. So I never saw myself as a songwriter. I just saw myself just wherever I could be needed. So I never really tried to be like a musician. I never tried to really be a songwriter. In fact, going to music high school, I just saw it as going to a good high school.
Okay. I get that.
and being around creative people.
Yeah.
I just enjoy being around creative people.
100%. I get that. Yeah. Growing up, I was very fortunate to go to like a boarding school, and I was definitely around people. I was a theater kid growing up. You know, but I was also on like varsity sports.
Wow.
And so I had to really juggle both
Mhm.
worlds of just being able to be like, yeah, coach, I'm here. You know, I'm ready to get on the line. You know, blow that whistle, and I'm there. You know, and then I have to just be like, yeah, you know, like what song am I supposed to sing this in? Like, am I singing in D flat, or am I singing this in like what progression? And then, you know, it was just like it was very very tough battling the duality of both worlds and trying to stay the macho,
Mhm.
cool varsity cat and also the vulnerable, sincere theater kid, you know. And you know, I was just walking that line as much as I possibly could, and just staying on the straight and narrow.
Mhm.
For sure.
Mhm.
You know, so it's
Mhm.
just like, and it's just a beautiful world, you know, the arts, and staying with people who are musically talented, who lead life in the creative, who have the free will experience of saying, this is what I want to do, this is how I
Mhm.
feel
Mhm.
daily, and this is what I want to go after. This is what I want to accomplish. And then you have the varsity athlete who is like, I need someone to tell me what to do. I'm so reliant on other
Mhm.
people telling me what to
Mhm.
do. I just got to go out there and perform
Mhm.
that way, you know. And so it was like, it's a beautiful thing to see how both of these two worlds are really just performers, right?
Mhm.
But it's in
Mhm.
different
Mhm.
ways,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm.
And so I'm currently in this world where it's like it feels like I'm bridging those gaps
Mhm.
between what I learned growing up, and I'm
Mhm.
trying to just turn it
This
into
is
one thing.
great. That's what it's about. See, it's this. Let me tell you, when you're organized, you're focused like you are, the world is yours. The world is yours.
Appreciate that. What is
You
yours?
know, and if you're like a forever student, you know that you're constantly learning, you'll always grow.
For sure. Yeah. Hey, thank you so much for your time.
This was great. I
This is
loved it.
awesome.
This
Yeah.
is awesome.
This is a good
Hope
time.
there's a part 2, part 3.
Yeah, for sure. We'll definitely
Yeah.
we'll reach out and we'll try to get you back on
Yeah,
the show
I would love
in
to
the
come
future.
back,
For sure.
and other folks that you might want to try to get on, let me
Mhm.
know. Let me be helpful to you
For sure.
of getting folks on it. I mean, there's some people that I think you really ought to be interviewing.
Okay.
And I think it's going to really make a difference for you.
Okay. Awesome.
Seriously,
For sure.
it's going to make a huge difference.
All right. Hey, thanks for everybody for watching.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you, all the Harlem Radio 115 supporters. You guys are the best. We do this for you, and peace and enlightenment, empowerment. Peace out. Have a good day. Thank you, William.
Yep.
Have a good one. Bye, guys.